Well, first I would like to introduce the speakers at the round table. We are very privileged to welcome here some of the members of the PETRA-E Network in person and, of course, many online. So we have Waltraud Kolb from the University of Vienna here with us. We have Roberta Fabbri and Sofia from Italy, Fondazione Unicampus San Pellegrino. Then we have Shelgas and Caroline Waterman from the Netherlands. And of course, we have Professor Duncan from the University of East Anglia. Well, my colleagues who agreed to say a few words about how they teach literary translation from my university, not only. Maria Pipeva over there. Then we have Yoana Sirakova. Yes, here we have. Then, of course, Stefan Rusinov. We see him in person, not only hear his voice. I'm saying this because most people know him by his podcast with called Footnote. This is a series of conversations with literary translators. Then we have Adela Mirolevska, who is a PhD student, but now represents the Elizabeth Kostova Foundation, and she will tell us some things about their workshops on literary translation. And we have there. Well, I don't see Yulia Rafailovich right now, but probably she will arrive soon because she was. Well, you saw her speaking on the microphone just 10 minutes ago. So, yeah, and here they are, Yoana and Julia. So, well, the first thing I would like to say is that, the plan is each speaker to have 5 minutes for a short statement about the way they teach literary translation, and this statement would be just a starting point for an informal discussion among us. We didn't try to invite every teacher in literary translation either in this university or in Bulgaria, because it would be an endless meeting. So we are very much aware that we are actually surrounded by teachers in literary translation. So we have them online, we have them in the library, and everyone is welcome to join the discussion. As we are hosts, I will say just a few words about the way, about Sofia University and literary translation here. Of course, my colleagues can correct me and add things, add details. So we don't have a translation faculty, and we don't have translation departments, which doesn't mean that literary translation doesn't have an important role in our teaching. The departments in our two philological faculties are organized mainly according to the main language which is taught, but within each career, be it Hispanic studies or Chinese studies or Turkish studies or whatever, translation is taught all along the 4 years at the undergraduate level, so it is taught consistently. When we say translation, we mean mostly literary translation, but the text we choose to translate depend on the particular teachers, of course. We are proud that many of our professors in translation are actually practicing translators. We also, theory of translation is taught as a compulsory course for everyone, and then we have optional courses on, for example, poetry translation or translation of humanities, things like this. So in general terms, I think that is. Well, the Faculty of Classical and Modern Philology has a master program in translation, and we have it's two co-directors here, Professor Maria Pipeva and Professor Vesela Genova. So I will give the floor to Maria Pipeva to present the program.
Thank you very much, and good evening, everyone. I'll try to be as concise as possible and give you an idea of what we are doing at the Masters, Joint Masters in Translation at the Faculty of Classical and Modern Philologies, which is a joint program between the Department of English and American Studies and the Department of Romance Studies, and the other co-director, Professor Genova, is sitting right behind me, who comes from the Department of Romance Studies. I personally have quite a long experience. I come from the Department of English and American Studies. I taught translation both at undergraduate level and MA level for a very long time. But as I said, I'll try to give you an idea of what's happening, what has been happening at master's level. In our program, we train students with, whose A language, native language is Bulgarian, but second language, English or French, or a combination of English and French, possible combinations. The program has been member of the EMT network, the English Masters in Translation network, which is a joint project between the European Commission and considerable number, for those who are not aware of this, considerable number of academic institutions, universities, higher education institutions. So we've been members of this network since its inception in 2009, quite some time now. And we obviously work in compliance, strict compliance with the rules and the standards set within the framework. Within in this network, we work according to the competencies framework of the EMT. Now, our MA program has a strong market orientation, teaching written translation. So our focus is on written translation into Bulgarian, training written translators with multiple profiles. So we are not exclusively dedicated to the teaching of literary translation, not even in the broader sense of understanding literature, but rather literary translation is an elective component within a set of compulsory, theoretical, practical disciplines and a variety of specialized courses. Who are our students? We teach students with a very diverse educational background, not just in culture, languages, linguistics, holding BA degrees in language and cultural literary studies, but also, well, quite a diverse set. Philosophy, psychology, European studies, publishing, law, international relations, economics, and many others. Still, over the past 4 or 5 years, our students, our intake has been dominated by bachelors of English philology at Sofia University, bachelors of French philology. So this means both negative, but also positive trend, depending on the point of view. This means that the students who come to us have a very, very high language proficiency. They have solid literary cultural background. They already have some knowledge of translation theory, and they have considerable practice in translation fiction texts from in their BA degrees. Thinking in terms of the PETRA-E framework, I would say that the students in our program start at approximately level 2 or a bit higher, advanced learner, even level 3, but let's say level 2, graduate at level 3, level 4, advanced professional, depending on, of course, on their individual background, previous experience, individual abilities. And a few of our students are already established literary translators. So what's peculiar, the pros and cons of our situation, in the sense that we are not specifically dedicated to literary translation. In our experience, there are some considerable benefits to teaching literary translation within a multi-profile program rather than in isolation. Practically all disciplines taught, as diverse as they are, practically all contribute directly or indirectly to a more rounded, professional competencies. Both the compulsory and elective courses, no time to enumerate them now. If you are interested, go on later on. But even, the boundaries of literary discourse being so fluid, even such courses like, the competence in even narrowly specialized type of translation are potentially valuable and relevant, such as legal, economic, medical, technical translation. So the same student doing literary translation as well as some of the others, there is some cross-fertilization that takes place. And another benefit of this mixed curriculum, as we see it, is the adaptability of students to the market. Because the situation in Bulgaria is such that it's not quite viable for, it's difficult for a translator to make a living translating exclusively literary texts. Of course, yes, there are people here who have been doing this, but they're rather an exception than the rule. So we try to give our students more varied expertise and to provide them with the tools to be competitive on the market. What are the challenges? What I see as challenges in our particular situation, and what some areas that still need further development. In the first place, I think we should be trying to build more solid bridges between the bachelor's and the master's program. Of course, there always been such links and interaction and cooperation, but I would like to see more structured interaction in terms of working together on the curriculum, holding regular seminars on methodology, because since our students increasingly come from our own BA degree, it's important that we start to prepare them, to groom them, so to speak, spotting talented students and attracting them and seducing them to come to the master's degree. Just a few more words here. What I see is obviously we can't make literary translators within 3 semesters. That's unrealistic. So this is a process that starts very, very early. In secondary school, the development of potential literary translator. So what we can do is help students become better translators. This is why in a 3-semester program, it's impossible to cover all aspects, even if we're as ambitious as if we want to develop all the competencies in the PETRA-E framework. We can't do everything. So in my view, what is very important is the extracurricular activities, including students in a variety of extracurricular activities, carrying out their work beyond the classroom, beyond the university, such as open forums. We have held such a informal forum on translation with our students, and it's open to other colleagues, other students, regularly, while setting some topic that is of interest to the students, and giving everyone the opportunity to air their ideas, to meet professionals in the field. All forms of should encourage our students, and we do encourage them to take part in things like translation seminars, public lectures, roundtables, the Elizabeth Kostova Foundation's translation atelier, the translation studios organized by the Next Page Foundation, other activities like involving students in the selection process for the annual Kristjan Award, the most prestigious award for literary translation from English into Bulgarian. So the importance of extracurricular activities, and finally, what I have always considered particularly important, also challenging to achieve, making translation ethics the core of activities. Overwhelming, overarching importance, especially in our contemporary world, not just related, of course, to the rise of artificial intelligence, but also raising students who are true professionals and who will be hopefully able to maintain the standards of the profession, the literary translator. Okay, so I've been talking too long. I'll stop here.
Thank you very much, Maria. Well, I'm tempted to ask Daria a quick question because she's a co-director of the other master program we have in the Faculty of Slavic Philology, so the other philological faculty we have. Well, do you think that 3 semesters is enough for someone to become a literary translator?
Well, good evening, everyone. It wasn't my intention to take the floor, but since I have been asked, I should only say that I don't think it is necessary to complete the study of a finished professional translator within 1 or 2 or 3 semesters. The main thing for me is to take some kind of initiative and to demonstrate some kind of good practice. There are there is an amount of things that should be learned, and these things are easily learned within this period of time. The rest is up to everyone, and it is a kind of question of experience, of talent, of education and background. So I don't think there is ground for worries. And I think our models of teaching and studying are good enough. So let me open a very little parenthesis and use the occasion to say something in Italian to our Italian guests. Mi fa molto piacere avervi qua, è veramente un grande onore, un grande piacere, siccome io e i miei colleghi che insegnano l'italiano e traducono dall'italiano siamo molto onorati dalla vostra presenza, quindi colgo l'occasione per salutarvi e dire che veramente è una bella occasione per conoscervi. Quindi buon proseguimento, immagino che sia la prima volta che siate qui a Sofia. Da domani il tempo si rimette al volo, quindi possiate approfittarne alla grande.
Well, it was nice to hear something in Italian, not only because of the melody, but because this is one of the objectives of this kind of meetings, actually people to meet. Waltraud, am I right that you have both an undergraduate program in cultural studies, which includes translation, and a master's program more particularly focused on translation?
Yeah, we do have a program that's called Transcultural Communication, which prepares students to then go for a master's in translation program, translation and interpretation. So our colleague Center for Translation Studies is actually a faculty within the University of Vienna, and we have 14 languages that we teach for translation and interpretation. And we have in the master's program 4 tracks, and one of these 4 tracks is literary translation. And what we do, and it actually grew out of a necessity because we were at risk of losing the literary track for budget reasons, of course. So we came up with the idea of having one course where everyone translates into German. So all the students have German as their native or near-native language, but they can translate from all kinds of source languages, even some that are not taught at our department. For example, if they have a Turkish-German background and we don't teach Turkish, they can still, use Turkish source text and translate them into German. Of course, we as teachers don't know all those languages. So what we do is that we ask the students to prepare very literal interlinear translations of those source texts and then explain to us as teachers and to their colleagues, their peers, what's happening in the source texts. And it was an experiment, but we've done that now for 6 or 7, 8 years, and it really works because it forces the students or encourages the students to reflect much more critically on what's happening in the source text, and they have to learn how to explain that to other students and to reflect on that and to find the terminology and the language to describe it. So this is one thing, and the other thing is that there is a very strong focus on the target language, on German, and we find that usually the problems students have, or what they really have to work on to become literal translators, is to work on their target language, to work on you know, all the registers, all the nuances of German. So we develop the creative skills in German, and we think that's more important than doing only contrastive work between two languages, because the problem usually is not that they don't understand the source text, but the problem is much more on how to say it in the target language. So we found that to work quite well, even though it started out as a compromise. But we just for the new curriculum last fall, and we kept this concept and this design because we find that it works quite well. They also have a class on creative writing and on editing, and then some things on narratology, statistics, and more general subjects like translation studies and technology. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you very
And
much.
we don't, unfortunately, we don't have budget.
Still, well, it's very nice that you combine literary translation and creative writing, and well, we don't do this actually at university level. We have another master program in creative writing, I think.
But we do have courses in creative writing.
Optional courses.
Yeah,
Well, we don't, so that's a difference.
and both at undergraduate level and MA level, they're related. It's not a full system program or something.
I think there's also creative writing course in the masters in the Slavic languages faculty.
Yeah, but it is a master program, not just.
No.
A course.
In the translation master program, there's
Yes.
creative writing
I
course.
remember. Well, so I wasn't right. Well, I was thinking, I have been thinking since our time about how we teach theory of translation and practical translation, because well, obviously there is a sort of resistance to theory, especially when translation is concerned, and there are many translators who say, and they are convinced in the fact that they don't need any theory in order to translate, or that maybe they can read theory just for the fun of it, if there is for it, but that it doesn't really serve them. So I'm asking both Roberta, who teaches theory of translation, and Stefan, who teaches theory of translation to the students of Chinese studies, if I remember well. How do you cope with this?
Maybe you go for it. Okay, so I teach two courses. One is a bachelor's course in the program Chinese Studies, and one is a master's course in what's it called, intercultural communication, I think it's called program, the master's program. And the bachelor's course is called an introduction to the theory and practice of translation, which would be more appropriately named an introduction to theories and practices of translation, in my opinion. And we don't have any standards in the program, and we also don't really have any good examples, I think. And there was a teacher that used to teach this course, and she had many classes, and she was very tired and fed up, and she called me, and she had to take a course, and then there we go. And I'm not I'm an adjunct lecturer. I only teach those 2 courses. I don't teach so much. So what I try to do is I realize how many paths you can take in teaching translation, and I've decided consciously to take 2 of those. One is theory, which is me lecturing and babbling on translation theories for an hour and a half every 2 weeks. And my approach is to give a general, because that's only 1 semester. We only have 1 semester in the 4th year of the bachelor's program. To take to give them a brief introduction of the history of translation theory. I started with an introductory lecture about the ancient theories, like starting from Horace up until Friedrich Schleiermacher, and I also put some ancient Chinese literature translations, which are also very interesting, by the way. And then I started with 20th century, and I try to keep it simple and fun as much as I can, more or less superficial, and I give them a lot of side reading, which is optional for them. I upload many articles, academic articles and scientific articles about translation. So if some of the students want to dig deeper into translation theory, they have the chance to do it. But during the classes, we try to keep it simple. And the second part is the practice. And I try to connect them. For example, when we speak about the Scopus theory, what they have to do is translate a board game. Because translating a board game illustrates very well the Scopus theory, because you have a very clear aim. When you translate a fiction text, the aim of the translation is not so very clear. But when you translate a board game, you have a very clear, again, the people who play the game should be able to play the game. This is a very simple scopus, telos of the translation. What I put focus on during the practice sessions is select such texts that pose different challenges for the students to cope with. I start usually with a text that has a lot of descriptions of actions, like micro actions. For example, there's a girl looking at herself in the mirror, and she drops her lipstick, and she bends down to search for her lipstick. And the exercise here is to make students imagine the scene and to translate the scene, not the words, but the scene. This is a first lesson that I give to them. Then we spoke about research just now, and I give them a text, like there are only two sentences that you have to make a huge research in order to translate them. It's a science fiction text that has astrophysics in it. And then we also have, just now we did subtitles for a film, and I also try to keep these practical sessions as dialogical as I can. I ask the students to take notes while they translate the text at home, and to come to me with cases that they found hard or challenging in some way. Also, I ask them if they have any text that they want themselves to translate. For example, this semester we translated a pop song lyric, which was very interesting to them and very challenging, and we had a fun discussion in it. I try to make them take part in the process as much as I can. And also during the semester, they have to read a single book, which is a translation from Chinese to Bulgarian. And at the end of the semester, they have to make a presentation with an analysis of this text. I think that's pretty much the gist of it.
I think you gave many good ideas. Roberta?
Well, yes, I teach theory of translation and linguistics. So the different subjects that sometimes are not sometimes are in contrast because often linguistics cannot help the theory of translation. And in my case, it's a little bit complicated because I teach in a bachelor course, and they study not literary translation, but technical translation and interpreting. So I try to focus on general questions and general subjects and matters. And I start with 3 questions. So all my course is I try to develop these 3 questions. The first is, what is translation? So we start with the history of the theory of translation, and we focus on this subject. And the second question is what translation does. So, and the focus is more on the translation studies in the classical terms. So translation changes many things. Changes culture. So we start from the question, and then we read text and we discuss about this. And the third question is why do we translate? Why translation? In a more broader and general sense. And some answers are very similar of what Duncan today said. So translation is a kind of experience. So it is knowledge by itself. It can create knowledge by itself. So so at the end of this path, it's sometimes it's my goal, my aim is simply to enrich their awareness of what they're doing. So simply that discovering that translation is not simply a practice, but it is a kind of experience in which, by which you change yourself, by this kind of practice, by kind of experience, and in a Berman sense. So experience of, or like Adela, the experience of illness, for example, that you are different after this kind of experience. So this is more or less my experience in teaching translation. I use literary text, literary translations, of course, even if they are more interested in technical text, and but sometimes you can think more deeply into theory if you compare complex text like literary text. Sometimes in technical text it's simply a matter. Yes, a matter of equivalence, and well, we talk a lot on the what is equivalence, so different kind of equivalences and so on. So I try to establish something very interactive. So I think this is important too. And they can reflect, and I do not teach translation, so I do any practice of really translation in classroom, but I ask them to reflect on their own work, their own translations. So my experience in that.
Thank you very much.
And then, yes, another thing I try to bring all the knowledge of the profession, the translators. So I try.
You mean the practical knowledge?
Yes, the practical knowledge. So all that is included in our framework in the professional competencies. So we discuss about, for example, contract of translation and working conditions and translators associations. So we also have. I try to bring them all the practical information on of the profession, the translator, of the professional translators. That is, and for them it is something new because they don't know anything concerning that.
Yeah, this is very useful actually, and well, I think we do this only at the master's level. So my students who have been helping us with the organization of the event still don't know anything about these practical aspects of the profession, and yeah, they're important as we all know. Yoana, I was amazed to read about the courses on translation that you have. I mean, your department of classical studies. Maybe I mean, it's not only translation, but it's also a reception. And I was wondering that perhaps there is a difference in approach when we deal with ancient texts. So please tell us a little about.
Thank you. I would like to make some general points, which will hopefully touch some of the points of Duncan Lodge of his presentation. And I will start with an epigraph from Pliny's the Younger letters, who says, simul quae legentem fefelissem transferentem fugere non possunt, which means, at the same time, things that would have deceived the reader cannot escape the translator. So the translator is a reader in a deeper level. So in the field of classical philology, scholars have historically been accustomed to conducting research simultaneously with their works on the text. However, this approach is laborious and time-consuming, often, or I should say, always requiring years to master. It is evident that the present moment does not permit the allocation of sufficient time for this purpose. In the field of translation studies, the term literary translation is generally used to encompass all types of text, including those that are classified as specialized or technical and whose language is characterized as specialized or technical. Consequently, research in the translation process does not differentiate between oratorical prose, I mean in classical philology, drama, epic, philosophy, or technical and medical text. The approach to research is analogous for each genre or type of text. It has been established over millennia, as you know. However, this traditional approach and the archaeological attitude to ancient texts impedes creativity and originality in the translation of classical text, both for the translators and for the audiences who read and utilize the translated text. The process of working with ancient texts entails the editing of the texts themselves, the scholarly editions and their translations, the provision of critical apparatus, and sometimes the addition of numerous explanatory notes. This multifaceted endeavor could be regarded as practice research, a field that is inextricably linked to translation. So in our field in classical philology, working with text has always required specialized knowledge, linguistic, cultural, historical, and so on. It is very demotivating, I should say, to not have the opportunity to assess translation as research. And as a translator myself, I'm not motivated to engage in practical translations, in the practice of translation, because they do not count as research, as scholarly work, and are irrelevant to career promotion. And classicists have always felt that we are greatly disadvantaged insofar as our translation work is not considered in the assessment of our research and scholarly works. In some countries, there is a practice to consider editions of classical texts as scholarly research. We have a colleague in our department whose doctoral dissertation is the edition of a Latin author, but this is not applied to translations. That translations sometimes require considering different manuscript readings to establish meaning, and all this research affects the way we translate and render the various features of the text in the target language. So as far as my courses are concerned, I teach a course which is named Translation, a dialogue between theory and practice. The participants are students from Scandinavian studies and classical studies. So it is a joint group of students. And we have very amazing classes because all the theories are presented first by me, and after that I ask the students to prepare some examples for the different translation models, for example, for the equivalence types or for the translation types, and they do this respectively in classical languages in Bulgarian and Scandinavian languages in Bulgarian, and they always are very happy to discuss each other's works. Another course, this is the joint course. The other ones are only for students in classical philology. And this is a particular course in literary translation, because in language courses in classics, we do always a translation, but this is the so-called grammar and translation methods. So we have a separate course in literary translation. And in this course, we make a grip translation and a literary translation. After that, they make a literary translation. And after that, we discuss the translations they made. And they assessed each of the translations as well.
Mm-hmm.
And we discussed the assessment as well.
Quite interesting.
So,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Duncan, could you please tell us a little bit more about what you do at the British Center for Literary Translation?
Sure, yes. So yes, I work at the University of East Anglia, where my job title is Professor of European Literature and Translation, but I'm also responsible for the academic program of the British Centre for Literary Translation, which has been at the university since 1989. It was founded by my predecessor, the renowned, I think, German language writer W.G. Sebert, who was a professor at the university, and he established the centre initially to be a haven for visiting translators, and we still are to some extent, but we have been more, over the intervening years, more integrated into the academic programme of the university. And so my main role within BCLT is hosting research seminars and other research events, and also overseeing our program of PhD research. So as far as teaching literary translation is concerned, BCLT doesn't have any teaching programs attached. And I should say that we don't at the university currently have any translation modules, literary translation modules at undergraduate level either. There is a separate department of languages which does offer language teaching program to undergraduates, and has its own Masters in Applied Translation Studies. We have a Masters in Literary Translation, which was set up over 30 years ago now, in 1994, I think. And for many years, this was the only master's program in literary translation in the country. There is another now that was recently set up at the University of Warwick. So I teach on that master's program. I teach a module on translation theory and history. And there are other compulsory modules for that program, which are called case studies and process and product. So case studies is a module which looks at different genre-based translation techniques, and that varies from year to year. Some years, depending on, it sometimes varies in the staff member teaching it. So it might be children's literature or drama, poetry, and so on. So that's case studies. Process and product looks more at experimental translation practices. And then, so then we allow our students, well, we oblige our students to take an optional module from another of our master's programs. It's interesting to me that the subject of creative writing has been already mentioned this evening, and my university, in fact, one of the main things my university is known for is having introduced a master's in creative writing, and we were the first to do that in the UK right back in 1970. So by now, the creative writing program has become very substantial, and we have a lot of students on that program, which is great for us in literary translation, because firstly, our students can take optional modules in creative writing, but it also kind of normalizes the approach which we take to literary translation, which is to consider it a kind of creative writing.
Yeah.
Hence, as I mentioned, the module which really looks at experimental translation practices as one of the compulsory modules for our students. So the emphasis on creative writing across the master's programs is carried forward also to the annual summer school, which we run. That is available to our master's students, but it's mostly a continuing professional development opportunity for professional translators and emerging literary translators. And again, that's something that we have been doing for many years now. We started that in 2000, so it's 25 years. And that has some unique features. It is a week-long summer school which runs in July every year, alternating now in person and online. And the way that we run that is that we bring together about 10 or 12 participants with a workshop leader and an author. So we're always working with contemporary writing, and we always have the author present so that they can interact with the participants. And that summer school has morphed over the years. We always have plenary sessions of a publishers panel with quite practical tips for the participants. But we also have workshops in creative writing for translators as part of that summer school. Again, kind of linking in to well, frankly, the expertise which is around in creative writing at the university. So we have, that's part of our extracurricular provision outside of the degree programs, but we also are able to offer our master's students weekly translation workshops where we bring back to the university often graduates from our programs who have become professional translators, and then they can come back and talk to our students about translating detective novels or translating drama, whatever. And so that's a really valuable aspect of our program that our students really enjoy. As I mentioned, I program research seminars which are available to our PhD students and to our MA students and to our visiting translators. We also have advanced, relatively recently we introduced a program of advanced translation workshops in the autumn, which are focused on specific languages, so, or sets of languages. We had Scandinavian languages one year, we had German. This year it's going to be Italian, always working into English. The summer school is a set of parallel workshops where participants work from particular languages into English, but also sometimes, well, each year we have a number of multilingual workshops, which act as a kind of safety valve, really, for the languages that we can't otherwise offer. One of the distinctive features, I think, of our program as well is that we can accommodate students working from any language into English. So many years ago, I set up a literary translation program at my previous university, which had a different model, where we had, as part of that program, master's program, we had master's modules in German English literary translation or French English literary translation. And as you can perhaps imagine, the numbers of students that we had each year for those modules was very small, and there came a point where we couldn't no longer sustain the program. So we had to wrap that program into a more general translation masters, which still continues, but the literary translation elements have very much fallen away. We're proud of being able to continue to offer a master's in literary translation at UEA, and I think the difference between what I'm doing now at UEA and previous university is the way in which we can plug our students into the profession, both by, for example, bringing now professional translator alumni back to the university, but also taking our students to, say, the London Book Fair every year, so that they get a very strong sense of how the profession works. We work very closely with the Translators Association, which is the kind of trade union, national trade union for literary translators over the years. And so we think of our program as kind of situated between academia and the profession, and that's certainly where BCLT has always situated itself. I think that's probably quite enough.
Thank you very much. I'm glad that we returned to creative writing and to well, this nice position between academia and the professional world, because we Bulgarians have the privilege to have two extra academic organizations who organize workshops in literary translation, and I'm sure that they can tell us a lot about those topics, creative writing and the connection to publishers and their overall approach. So let's start with Adela, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. Maybe a small disclaimer. I'm probably the only one on this roundtable who does not specialize in translation. My PhD is in culture studies, specifically American culture, but I'm saying this because the Elizabeth Kostova Foundation, which I represent here, we like to think of translation as a bridge between cultures, and this is the idea that we begin all of our projects with. We do have, so the one that I will introduce is the translation atelier, which is the translation workshop. But we do also, because you mentioned creative writing, we do have a lot more programs focused on creative writing. And what's interesting is that a lot of the participants who come in one of our programs, they later come to others, they visit events, so they become part of the network. And this is an opportunity for them to both participate in creative writing, and if they have this interest, specific interest in translation of literature as well. Our creative writing programs focus more, they attract more younger people, like students, high school students, and this is a nice bridge again for them to try with that, and then maybe if their interest deepens, they can try the translation atelier as well. So a few words about it. It has been happening annually since 2011. And it specifically focuses on translation between English and Bulgarian, and on literary translation, both prose and poetry. It is open. I think what's really nice about it is that it's open to people of all stages. So it can be people who have no experience in translation, it can be students of translation programs, of philology programs, or professionals. We actually have had people come, professional translators come and participate as participants, and the same people then can also teach next year. So it's a very interactive course when you can meet and interact with people really of various stages. And this is probably the most positive aspect of it, because you get to interact really with different people. There is, however, a selection process of people who want to participate. They need to translate some excerpts. So we do value the level, technical level and stylistic level as well. And basically, there are two main types of sections. On the one hand, there are the sorts of seminars, workshops where participants work together, both individually and together, to translate excerpts under the guidance of professionals. And there also is the lectures segment, where again, experienced translators, but also publishers, editors can have lectures on different topics. And this is to address what you mentioned, the lack of information about the professional experience of translators. So they can learn about that at a program like this one, and also yours. And I think this is also helpful because it's slightly different than what you learn at university. It is also theory-based, but also has more about the professional aspect of translation, like a lecture on how to find a publisher. Yes, and also the fun part, the final part of it, after a few days of translating, there is the translation slam, which is an event, fun event where translators can kind of fight who does the best translation of an excerpt. Or sometimes we do it differently. We prepare kind of translation challenges, and we divide them in groups, and again they try to do the best translation. So this is kind of the closing event of each year. So a little bit of statistics. Up to this date, there have been over 250 translators who have participated in the program, and many of them have actually become translators and continued to translate literature. And a new update since 2022, the program also included the Stefan Avramov Scholarship, which is in memory of the Bulgarian translator Stefan Avramov, and it's awarded to one of the participants who did best, who showed passion and talent in their work. And what's interesting about this award, that is, it has a focus on African literature. So the participants are asked to translate an excerpt from of an African author, of course, in English. They are awarded 1,000 Bulgarian leva, to further hopefully continue this translation of the book and lead to publication of the book in Bulgarian. Yes, I think that's pretty much it. The last year we did it a bit differently. We included a day in the mountains, on Vitra mountains. So we also always trying to do something more different, more fun, with a bigger opportunity for people just to talk casually after all during the events.
I was going to, well, Duncan, I was going to give the word to Julia to tell us a bit about the variety of their workshops.
Well, actually, just as a sort of segue, Julia, I am on the mailing list for your foundation, and I was going to ask you about that retreat in the mountains. It sounded wonderful. And it sets me thinking about the spaces in which we do translation, in which we teach translation, and spaces particularly outside of universities. I mean, this is a wonderful space that we find ourselves in now, but not all universities are able to offer such inspiring spaces, perhaps. And so I think we're going to hear about a space of translation now, and I'm thinking particularly post-COVID about the value of in-person translator experiences and spaces in which we do our translating. But
yes, it's true. We have a marvelous garden in the house and the library where we do all of the events and translation workshops. But since we don't believe that a translator is sort of made in 3 years, as you asked before, we actually think that, I mean, I'm sure that's true for many professions, but definitely for translators, it's a lifelong profession. It's a profession that needs development and needs nourishing throughout one's career, because it involves language, and language is alive, and to the side. And I think that maybe BA and MA programs are not enough, or they are, but they exist. Whereas we feel that literary translators who exit university are kind of left to their own devices to develop further. And I think that besides the Elizabeth Kostova Foundation and our studio, there's not many other options in Bulgaria, I think, at all, for any kind of professional development trainings and so on. So we do that. We started our studio for literary translation in 2019. It runs every year for about 6 days. It's 2 long weekends, 2 consecutive long weekends, because it's divided into 2 there are 2 groups of topics. One is more like lectures, and we do pitching sessions as well, and workshops related to the profession, so to speak. And then the other part of the studio is the more hands-on work on actual translation. So people apply. This is more for I have to say, this is more for established translators. Although we are open to emerging ones, people do apply with a translation they are already working on, and they could not. I mean, it's not a given that they get in. They might not. So it's kind of implied that your experience to some extent, although we did have at least one year that we targeted it at as students Polish studies particularly, but yeah. So people apply with the text that they're working on. This text should not have gone external editing of any sort. So the only editing the text might have gone is just their own edits. And then the workshops are in groups of 7 to 8. It kind of depends on how many people we have. There's a workshop leader. The idea is for everybody to have read all the texts. So during the sessions, there's in-depth discussions about each particular text, about strategies the translator has taken, just very in-depth discussions. And I feel that it's extremely beneficial because, and it's getting out of the usual way a translator works, because usually it's not a collaborative activity to translate, and sometimes you get too much into your head and you can't really bounce off ideas with other people. And so these discussions are always very, very interesting. And what we started doing late last year and this year is actually take these, we call them beehives, translation beehives. We thought to get them out of the studio and offer them several times a year, because we realized that while of course the lectures and the workshops for the pitching and so on, they are very beneficial as well, but translators need something more ongoing, because they once a year for less than a week, we feel is not enough for them. So, and yeah, we started offering these several times a year, and we're doing some thematic ones. So now we're going to do for translating children's literature, for example, and in the fall we'll do poetry. So yeah, we'll still keep the studio, but maybe we'll expand that into a more take it outside of Sofia, and we'll see. It's in the works, yeah. But yeah, the idea behind it at the end of the day is just to have the opportunity for translators to develop their skills at any time, any point of their career, and not just study at university.
Thank you very much. Well, when talking with the participants in the workshop organized by the Elizabeth Kostova Foundation, and also those organized by the Sofia Literature and Translation House, one always notices that people return year after year. So it's a very nice example of networking, and just the feeling of being a part of the community is really valuable.
Yes.
And well, I have to say that the extra-academic setting, be it at the mountain or not in the mountain, but just in a nice house, helps a lot. Yeah. So we are running not late, but well, I think we would have something like 15 minutes for discussion, and I'm sure that a lot of questions have been raised in everyone's mind. So please comment or ask
però c'è ancora tanto tennis.
Well, I was very interested in your presentation because that was the only one that mentioned assessment, and this is something that I'm very confused about and I very much hate it. So I would like to pose the question: how do we evaluate the students' translations? That's I don't have an answer to that. If someone wants to take the opportunity to share their thoughts.
Per mostrare i propri
There are 5 criteria for
Okay.
these assessments. For example, stylistic style or stylistic figures, the way that they are saved or lost in translation. I can't remember all the 5 criteria, but they have them in the model course and they do it online, the assessment for every of these 5 criteria. I have invented them. I can tell you what are, if you are interested, I can see. Yeah, okay. I can see them and I can tell you. But you can discuss something else because I have to.
Have you vetted them intuitively, or have you based it on some theory or something?
Of course, I have based it.
You know, assessment is not so difficult at the bachelor level, but then students get better and better, and it becomes a lot more difficult.
Can you not like the translation, but it be according to I mean, through this methodology that you have?
No, I don't like assessing translation as good or bad. I never do this. If I understood, yeah.
Let me rephrase. Can you not like the translation, but using your assessment criteria for it to kind of receive a high ranking?
Yeah.
Right.
Of course.
Yeah, me too. I don't very much have a criteria, but but I encourage students to be brave with the debate because especially for bachelor students, they're very afraid of original, and they try to keep as close as possible. And when I see someone that made a bold move, I usually hate it, but I encourage it.
I get it. That's what I'm.
Yeah, but that makes a lot of sense, actually.
There are products that are.
Maybe, I don't know to be harsh, but maybe I will follow what Angel said about teaching at undergraduate level, because when students are not very much, not very competent in their source language, and they don't master their target language, but are not very much aware of it. And then you have to assess, of course, it's your obligation as an academic, and there are things that they are just wrong. I mean, of course, we talk about interpretation and different stylistic choices and things like this, but there are things which are just wrong. So we start with it, and things get better. Things get much better at the master's level, or well, of course, with more and more experience. So that's when there's room for interpretation and different strategies.
So I can tell. I find them accurately and unambiguously rendered content preserving the stylistic features of the original or compensating for stylistic features that cannot be preserved, adequacy of the lexical register used in the translated language, fluency, let's say, of the translation, readability of the Bulgarian language, and absence of signs of interference of the source language with the target language. And there are some votes for outstanding translation decisions. These are the 5 criteria.
They're pretty abstract though. How do you like? How do you decide what grade you should do? But do you rate? Do you have points, for example? Do you take points when some statistic figure is lost or something like that?
The points are from 1 to 5 as
Okay.
for everyone, for every criteria.
Okay.
I think they have fun. Students have fun to assess others' translations.
Duncan, you were going to say something?
I was just going to come in on your point about undergraduates translating badly, potentially. And I'm thinking about AI and the way in which sort of where my university, I'm sure this is a general feature. We're asking ourselves, how can we change our assessment modes to try and ensure that students are not AI? And this is, of course, a particularly important issue for us in translation and increasingly in literary translation as well. So I'm wondering if colleagues who are involved in assessing literary translations are perhaps changing assessment modes to help us. Or whether that's just something on your to-do list.
How do you mean choosing the task that
Right, I mean, that's the advice that we're getting. So in other words, you could go one of two ways. Either you go back to handwritten exams in exam condition without any use of computers, or you could say, oh, sorry, one of 3 ways, either that, or you could just go all in and say, yes, you may use AI or whatever, and it's about how you use AI, or you devise assessment methods where AI is not actually helpful, it doesn't distort, give a false impression of the, say, native competence of the student. So there are a number. I think it's an interesting, because we're kind of on the cusp, aren't we, with in literary translation of this being a massive problem. It's already, I mean, in some ways it already is, and that means that the decisions have not been definitively taken yet, and there are still some different avenues that we can choose to go down. Well, I don't think that situation is going to last for many years.
It still depends, very much depends on the pairs of language. So thankfully, I think that with Bulgarian, AI is not so good yet, not for the purposes of literature space. Well, it depends on what kind of text you're setting. But without luck, we can say English, French, English, Italian, English, German, possibly. The situation is much more.
Once again, it very much depends on the level of students. Because these days, the AI, even translating from English into Bulgarian, the AI is can have a pretty good second year student.
Of course.
Experiment with AI last year, and we found out, not to get into details, but we found out that when English is not involved, AI actually uses English as a bridge.
Yes.
And that provokes us to think what is our voices. humans
So that means
in
that
the society. Yeah,
you can add another criteria, not traces of the original
Yeah.
language, but traces of.
Yes.
That's not productive, I think, because restricting students from using AI is just, it's not logical, because it's a tool, just like dictionaries are a tool, and it's all about not using it, it's about how you use it and teaching students to use it well. Because they will use it after they leave the university, they will use it.
It depends though, because I don't see a application of machine translation in literary translation.
But this is just now.
Sure, but
It will.
but right now it's mostly an obstacle that prevents students from developing.
A tool can be an obstacle as well if you don't use it the right way. So what I say to my students is try to build that neural network in your brains first, and then you could probably try working with the AI. So at the end of the day, I believe it's much more about motivating students to wait a little bit before using the AI, rather than thinking of clever ways of assessing.
Illustrating that it might be a valuable pedagogical tool. It's not introducing, being bolder and introducing it into the classroom, but discussing and demonstrating how we as human translators can be better, how we cannot, yes, it can be helpful, but we have to be better than it in order to produce the very competent translators. We cannot rely too much on the AI.
Yes, of course. One thing I ask them is do you really want the AI to be better than you?
That's exactly what I was trying to say, that it comes down to respect for the text, because if you teach students respect for the text and passion for a good translation, then if they use AI, they can then spend hours polishing the text in the version of AI. So it's what you want to achieve in the end, finally.
That's a very questionable statement.
It's problematic, but
Post-editing as a replacement for translation. Is a very questionable.
There's another experiment I know about that's about post-editing. Actually, they took two groups of literary translators and they gave one, it's all with the same text. So they gave one a version of AI to edit, but to edit it like changed. Like, they encouraged them to change the translation, and then they gave the other group just to translate. And the result was that the AI translation after editing was very uniform, like the same pretty much, and also mistakes were left out, even though, whereas the human translation are very varied. Not to mention that post editing takes more time and just problematic on a whole other level.
We have a research in post-editing among us, so Waltraud, please.
I completely agree with you, and I want to say two things. One is that I think what we have to help students is to become aware of the difference between machine language and human translation. And I find that it's not easy at all for them to identify this machine language, and then in post-editing they can't really perform well. And the other thing is that one problem I see is that you will never be able to post-edit a literary text really well if you are not a really good translator person. And I wonder how how students and emerging translators, how can they actually develop their translation skills? Because at least in German and English language pair,
I know that for the young translators, from our universities, they already get those editing contracts. So how are they, able to develop their translation skills if they don't get the translation contracts, but mainly those editing contracts, which are especially offered to, young translators, take those contracts because they want to work and they want to get into the field. But I think it's the wrong way to get into the field. So I think there's an actual risk of, very general feeling, literary translation in some language, in
Earlier, you mentioned that one of the things you do in Vienna with your students is to teach them about the use of computer tools. And I'm just wondering how many of us are doing that. I mean, we're saying, yes, we need our students to be comfortable using AI and to realize the drawbacks and so on. But I'm very aware that on our program, we don't have a module in computer-assisted literary translation, or we're not yet, it's not yet part of our syllabus to work with our students and AI and to develop their skills in this rapidly developing area. I don't know if others are in the same position.
Say one thing, because those technology classes, machine translation classes, they are not specifically in the literature.
Okay. Yeah.
Our students, they have to do other many courses, and 40% are literary courses and 60% are general courses, languages, and those general courses, which are for everyone, not just for the literary. And
with the classical languages, we don't have such problem because as the most problematic thing is the understanding of the text. So when we do a literal translation and we analyze all the text from all the perspectives deeply, they don't need AI to do the literal translation out of the so they're really interested and motivated to do it themselves and not to use this is specifics of the text to be translated.
I'm afraid that we have to end the discussion. Finish the official part of it. So thank you everyone very, very much. I really appreciate you being here.
Interventi di governi di natura diversa per riportare